there would be uproar and we'd probably get a vote of no confidence, kick him out. Don't wait till the election.
So I find it utterly ridiculous the fact that you can say that 2/3 is better than 3/3. Do you hear yourself? We are talking about one race that is in poverty a lot more than other more well-off races. Hello everyone and welcome back to Politics Relaxed podcast. Today we're going to be talking about online issues of politics. So we're going to split it up into two parts here. We've got the woke and the fake news section almost. Let's introduce the people on our podcast today. We've got Rajan, Cameron, Piers, Tommy and Lily in order of how you see them on the screen. So let's get right into it. With kind of the coronavirus side of things, we've got a vaccine on the way now. But does anybody kind of want to say something about the fake news that's been spreading at the minute? Because it's really dangerous and it's being picked up by quite a lot of people. Because we've seen a poll recently which shows about, depending on the different polls you look at, it's about 60-70% of the population only would take the vaccine. So there obviously must be some belief of this fake news. Piers, do you want to start?
Yeah, well, I mean, now we're far into a pandemic. There's a lot less fake news because people know what's going on. But at the beginning of it was all up in question. And since people are getting a lot of news from social media, which is the hardest source to check, it's that there was a lot of fake news flying around at the time. Facebook, Instagram, whatever you use. I think. To anyone who's confused about fake news, just go with just read news from a popular broadcaster, because they are not going to be fake. It's their job to be real, however much they want to twist or whatever. But it just go with them.
Yeah, of course. I think that is some good advice, actually. And you should always double check your sources if you're going to use them. I try to make this as fair as possible. Rajan, do you want to?
Yeah. Donald Trump, beginning of the outbreak of coronavirus, not just coronavirus, also about the election, giving some misleading stories on human lives, pretty much. Misleading stories about the election, just using his Twitter account. And I really do call into question, how do we let the so-called leader of the free world just ramble on without holding him to account? If Boris Johnson posted something like that in the UK, there would be uproar and we'd probably get a vote of no confidence, kick him out. Don't wait till the election. But because it's America, because it's Donald Trump has fed into this personality of what a US president is supposed to be. So I don't understand how he was able to get away with it, honestly, because he's been slowly building up his persona over time, and his personality is sort of a reckless. His personality, not his policy, his personality as a reckless president, and that's how he's got away with it. So I'm not sure how that's happened, but yeah, it just has. It's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite hard though for the news organizations to actually fact check every single person that goes onto Facebook or Twitter, but over the last few years, there has been a lot of pressure on these social media companies to get it right. We saw during the election a big crackdown from Twitter and Instagram on fake election stories. Trump's tweets a lot of the time did get fact checked, and they were quoted reputable sources underneath the tweet. Piers, do you want to add something?
Well, yeah, the thing with Trump is the whole, a big part of his 2016 campaign to become president was stopping this fake news, and he's always rambling on about how fake news is bad, and yet not only does he blame reputable news sources that may have a twist, but they're still reputable, CNN, NBC, the TV ones. He just spreads fake news himself. So he's the thing he supported.
And also calling the election rigged as well. Mate, what are you? We're supposed to hold the president to account, and we do that in the UK as well. We hold the prime minister to account. and Donald Trump not being held to account by misleading the public. Misleading the public is such a sackable offence. You're supposed to be the role model that the world and your people look up to, and if you're trying to mislead the public, then that's just like, what are your intentions as prime minister? What is your intentions as president? Is it just to be president just for the title, or is it to actually serve your people? And I think Donald Trump's got something wrong there.
Tommy.
Yeah, following on a bit from Piers' point, about the fake news in the 2016 campaign, he was endorsing Fox News a lot. He still does. It's his news source. He got a bit angry at them when they pre-forecasted Biden to win. And I think, following on from what Rajan said, a lot of what Donald Trump says is to get publicity. I think he put out a survey in September asking what they thought of his presidency and his rallies, and the options went up to good. And he asked about Biden's, and it started at bad and went down all the way. So I think Trump, it's mainly for being in the spotlight. And I think he's putting up a fight. He knows that he's lost, but he wants to keep the spotlight on him for as long as he can.
Yeah. I just want to go back to what Rajan said about Boris and he would never do something like that. Because the Brexit campaign is shrouded in a lot of allegations of fake news and manipulation. The New York Times, along with The Guardian in 2014, reported that contractors and employees of Cambridge Analytica tried to sell psychological profiles of their users on Facebook to the to political campaigns. And we've seen a lot of on Cambridge Analytica, we've seen a lot of controversy because they were involved in the Trump campaign and in the Brexit campaign, which Boris Johnson was one of the figureheads, I'd say, of. And then we also had the Russia report because Cambridge Analytica have heavy links to Russia, and there are reports that during the Scottish referendum and the Brexit referendum, there was interference. Cameron.
I would say that we're kind of a little bit wrong by saying that neither leaders are fully accountable, for example, or whether we're saying that Trump is not accountable for what he's saying. He's clearly accountable, and he's accountable to the American people. Here in Britain, the media and the British people, we still continue to hold our leaders to account, and I think that's important. So I think we're getting a little bit carried away here. I mean, it's not like we're just letting some of our world leaders do whatever they want and say whatever they want. We've still got a degree of accountability here. We can still vote people out. It's still a democracy, and our media still have the free reign to tear into our leaders if they want to. So I think we've still got accountability. I appreciate that. Yeah, Trump has said a lot of things that have been controversial in the past. And I think it's good that Twitter, for example, are flagging up some of the fake things that he said, some of the lies that he's put out. And it's good to see they're doing that, and hopefully we can continue that moving forward. But I think that shows the accountability that we are growing in our Western world.
You said, one sec. You said controversial. Do you mean lies or do you mean controversial? Because we've got to be very specific when we're talking about fake news, I think.
Well, I said both. He said controversial stuff in the past. He's said lies in the past. We all know that. And as I said, it's good that he's now being picked up on some of the frankly incorrect things that he said.
Rajan.
Yeah, 100%. Trump I think it was he got a few tweets removed, didn't he? For fake news and simply calling the election rigged, which he shouldn't. And on the other note of holding our world leaders accountable, I think that American people were a bit lucky that during the coronavirus era, where Donald Trump handled it much worse than possibly democratic government would, that they had an election coming up. In the UK, our next general election is not until May 2024. So the only way to really oust our government out would be through a vote of no confidence, unless there's other ways to hold them to account.
You mentioned the purported Russian interference in 2016, and I just wanted to say that I don't think that the small amount of interference that I think occurred didn't affect the election result.
Here's a good question for elections. Don't you think we should possibly have some sort of state-controlled media just for elections to keep everything bipartisan and neutral? Not such as like a state media, but sort of like a place that we can go to get resources just for like political in the election phase. Because when you're talking about Cambridge Analytica targeting advertising, so what they would, I'm pretty sure this is what they would do, that they would target ads to specific parties to like try and influence the voters. Instead of that, have like direct media that's fair, so that our public can accurately draw comparisons themselves.
I'll just kind of like clear up the Cambridge Analytica thing. So what they do is they like look at what people liked, for example, on Facebook, and they try to guess like which way they'd vote politically, and then they'd target ads, like micro target ads to the specific person to try and like sway their vote. But I think kind of what you're suggesting, in a way we have it already with the BBC, but again, it's not completely bipartisan. But can you have a bipartisan like news source? I don't know.
I think the only when you talk about media, Andrew Marr said, "When I report with only facts only." That's how you can report, just with facts, just what people have said, not like giving like opinions and that. And that's what we need.
Just to respond to Piers earlier, he asked if there is no place to get resources. I think that's what he said.
Maybe that was
no,
Rajan.
Not Piers, sorry, Rajan. Sorry, Rajan. Yeah. So for the US elections, I think it was Trump who's trying to get them through the non-personalized ads filter, so it could get to everyone. I'm not sure how well that worked, but then also the TV channels, they also have set times for when there can be political broadcasts. They'll clearly display it as political broadcast. So I think at the moment there is enough resources for people to make their own mind up and to know the biases that the different companies have.
There is enough media.
In Britain, they have the manifestos. In America, they have the party platform, I think it's called.
But would the average person want to do that and take in all required evidence? I don't think so.
Yeah, but
I think
can't make somebody go and look for evidence. I don't think that's fair. It's like these quite like fringe movements that are developing online that I think are the bigger danger than the actual it's not a lack of information that's the problem. I'll just move on a bit to I was talking about fringe groups. The QAnon kind of platform has taken a stage, especially in this election. They have some quite outrageous conspiracy theories that all the Democrats are pedophiles, and they have a secret pedophile ring that runs in pizza shops. In America, we saw a man turn up to a pizza shop with a gun, claiming he was looking for the stolen children. And we also have there are now two people from QAnon who have been elected to the Senate.
I think I love the theories. I mean, however wild they may be, I love them. They do make a lot of sense. But I don't think you can go on and saying that this is true or whatever it is. The thing is, the story, it's made so well that you almost want to believe it is true because of how wild it is. But, of course, we'll have to conspirate. Tommy?
And yeah, I think with QAnon, I think following on, I completely agree. I think most of it is just for fun. I know that there are people that take it very seriously. Like, there's been lots of conspiracy theories surrounding the group itself. Like, it's John F. Kennedy Jr. who's running the account. But no, most of that's fake. Like, I think for the ordinary person, it's a good laugh.
Yeah. But as I gave example of before, it can have very, very serious consequences. I'm sorry, just before, it was the House of Representatives, not the Senate. So I just wanted to...
Has anyone seen Avicii's music video for A Better Day by any chance?
No.
It perfectly depicts QAnon and what they do, and I think anyone who's listening should go have a look at it. It pretty much gives a visual representation. Lily?
I was just going to say that everyone here can probably look at these theories and kind of see them as a joke and go, oh yeah, like that's not going to happen because everyone here is very like well educated and they can make their own decisions. But then from people that maybe have like had less than as good education as us, then like it can be interpreted as like a more harmful and serious way. So it's kind of like a lot more harmful than you might think to other people.
Yeah,
because they're like they're like more influenced by things that they might not necessarily think are like, I'm not saying this in like a mean way or anything, just like more influenced by like these sort of things because they come across as like very like controversial and like intriguing. Like they're very like Trump, they're quite like loud and they're making all these opinions and everyone's like, oh, that sounds interesting because they presented it in a way that like is really interesting to me because it's loud and they're shouting and they're making me believe in something. So but then for us, when we know like the facts behind it, it's easier to see them as like more laughable and obviously false. So it's kind of different.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point actually, and especially people that maybe have lost their job, and then like even less, like you wouldn't even call them conspiracy theories, such as like, oh, all immigrants are stealing our jobs. It can become like very believable, even though it's really not true. Especially when you want to be angry at the government, it's kind of a perfect like opportunity. All right, we're just going to move on a bit. We're going to go on to kind of political correctness and woke is I really don't like the word woke because I don't think many people know what it means. They use it, they like to throw it around, but they don't really know what it means. I've got the dictionary definition here just because I want to kind of want to talk about that first, just so we all know that what we're talking about. So my definition of woke, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is alert to injustices in society, especially racism. If you want it a bit simpler, is basically you can see injustices such as racism, maybe homophobia, etc. That's the Oxford Dictionary definition, but I'm pretty sure somebody's going to disagree with me. Piers, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, you said the definition of woke, like, but then it's, I mean, as you said before, it's used a lot more widely as a term on social media and places like that. Obviously, no one should be racist or homophobic or anyone. If you are, go lie down. But I think it's often used as a synonym with SJWs, social justice warriors, which I'm sure you don't like either. But I think it's more used for people who like campaign for things or like, you know, post things on social media about racism and justice and all that, rather than just people who just want to get on with their life whilst being aware that racism exists and is bad.
Yeah, but I don't think everyone is aware that racism exists still. I think a lot of people are like, oh, a lot of the time we hear this excuse, oh, well, it's 2020, this should never be happening. Well, it is still happening, and I think a lot of people don't realise it is. I still don't really see why woke is such a bad thing. Like, everyone's always like, why we shouldn't have woke this or woke that. Cameron, I'm sure you're going to disagree with me.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that the definition of woke you read out was quite a woke definition of woke. And I think let's move it away from the word woke, all right? Because I don't like it that much either. I prefer the term political correctness when we're talking about this. And I don't like that term that much either, because it implies that everything about it is political and then correct. And I think what we're looking at here is a lot of social issues that aren't necessarily all political. And then we're also looking at the fact that some people may think that some aspects of political correctness are not correct. They will disagree. So I think that's quite a base term as well. That's like, you know, I'm giving you this term, that is the definition of this term. When actually I think political correctness is a much wider ranging thing, and it's something people can have differing opinions on. It's quite a complex topic. And there are two arguments here, definitely. There's the easy argument to take, which is that, oh, I support political correctness. I support wokeness and everything that it represents, because I believe it alerts us to injustices in society. And the other argument, the more difficult argument to take, but the one that many people up and down, certainly this country, believe is actually, hang on, perhaps we're taking this a bit to the extreme. Perhaps we've gone past equality now, and perhaps we're moving into the realms of positive discrimination, which is something that many people, including myself, believe is an equal evil to negative discrimination. In fact, they work hand in hand. Because if you've got more positive discrimination in your society, the people being positively discriminated against, I hate the term positive as well, because it's not positive, as I said, it's an equal evil. But the people who are being perhaps positively discriminated against will then feel anger towards the people who are being given those opportunities ahead of them, which is what causes negative discrimination. So you've got a cycle here, and actually there's people like me standing in the middle who are looking at it all and thinking, hang on, can't we just have equality? Can't we give everyone the same opportunities based off their merit and their qualifications, and not give anyone more opportunities than another person because of anything physical that can't be controlled? That's where I stand on it.
Yeah, Tommy, you wrote an article on woke marketing the other day for our website. If you haven't read it, go and check it out. Just plug in our website. But do you want to make a point?
Yeah, I think something that the term woke is used for is used in a negative aspect. I completely support movements that are combating injustice. I don't think there should be a social hierarchy in that way. I just don't think it's right. But I think when TV shows change the entire script storyline just to push a message across to you, it ruins the show. This happened with Doctor Who recently. It used to be one of my favourite shows, and then it's this new writing style, which has been putting in issues, real world issues into it, rather than like the classic, I guess you could say. I guess you could say I'm being nostalgic, but it's true. It's they've been using episodes to put pollution, mental health, racism. The new series isn't the quality it used to. I think people that are I think in June this year, there was some trend going around black squares. I think most people who were doing that were not actually fully educated on it. They're just following the crowd. I think that's what a lot of people do these days. It's sad, but it's true. People who tend to disagree with people saying that woke is bad are the people that don't really do their research on the things. And I think with companies putting in on it, like we saw with Pride Month, we saw a lot of companies changing like logos to rainbows and all that. They didn't really care. They just wanted income. They wanted social acceptance. And I think most companies don't really care about that. They only care about customers.
I do want to respond to your point, but a lot of people want to speak. I'll go to Rajan first.
I think a lot of what Tommy says, he's allowed to make those comments, and that's his own personal view. But I think from company perspectives, wouldn't you say that because pushing the agenda of equality in society, such as gay pride flags or BLM, it's pushing the message? If you see a company's logo endorsing these movements, then we get a lot more people that are accepting of it. Football clubs as well, having pride flags in their logos, I think it's pushing a very positive message, regardless of, well, it's not regardless, but I don't think many of them are actually going to be discriminating against. I think they're actually putting out a very positive message, and they should. And moving on to what Cameron was talking about earlier, positive discrimination. We talked a bit about this last week as well, but I'd just like to hear Cameron's thoughts on what he was speaking about, the aspect of positive discrimination, where he says we already have a society that is equal, where a lot of people have equal chances. But don't you think that instead of equality, there should still be a slight form of justice involved, where you said everyone gets equal opportunities based on their own merit, but this is not the case, because people of white upper class families are able to get access to higher quality education, higher quality food, they are often well off, where they have a fairly well off lifestyle and able to progress easier in life. Whereas in lower income families, many children are growing up with single parent families in poverty. And don't you think that maybe just a slight, I'm not saying positive discrimination is entirely a good thing, but slight justice to maybe consider positive discrimination for people from lower income families, especially the BAME community, because they've grown up with these extreme challenges that many of the upper class haven't faced, that would sort of leverage it a bit more. Because you see, equality is not that equal, but giving justice is just a little bit, giving a little bit to claw back. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Cameron.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with businesses putting in place schemes to help people from deprived backgrounds, and I'd like to say that doesn't discount white people from working class backgrounds, because actually many people who are white and in working class backgrounds are actually at the very foot of society at the moment, and we need to help everyone from deprived backgrounds of poverty to and give them more opportunities to try and come up and make some money. But what I don't agree with is, by doing that, taking away opportunities from anyone else. What I believe in is that if you're going to give more opportunities to people from deprived backgrounds, let's say my left hand are those people, that doesn't mean that you bring down the people who are from more privileged backgrounds to fit that. No, you have to bring the left hand up. You have to bring the people from deprived backgrounds up, not the people from privileged backgrounds down. That's how we achieve equality of opportunity, but also presenting those opportunities to people from deprived backgrounds. And of course, because we know from history that people from BAME backgrounds have experienced more poverty. That's literally because of history. Unfortunately, we can't change that. What we can change is the present, and make sure that we are presenting those opportunities to those who need it, but also maintaining that we are not taking opportunities away from other people in order to achieve that.
But
yeah, I actually do like that.
Yeah, when are we going to implement this change? Like, you're talking about all this change that's going to happen, but how and when are we going to implement it?
It's happening already.
How are we going to rise people up when, like, none of these teams are in place, like social mobility?
It's happening every year. It doesn't have to happen at such a rapid pace in 1 year. It can happen like over 10 years at a less rapid pace, so that nothing radical happens. I mean, the top universities are gradually adding more and more spaces for people from state schools who get similar A-level and GCSE results, and that's good. But they don't need to instantly raise it to I don't know, whatever the portion is, but they don't need to do that immediately. It's better to do a transition over a number of years than to do something radical.
Why should we not do something radical? Surely, if we want to eradicate racism from society, something has to happen that's radical.
Hang on, but look, you might be forgetting here the amount of progress we've made over the last few decades. And these schemes are in place now to help deprive people from BAME backgrounds into work. And every year we see massive businesses improving their diversity, in their diversity quotas. You can see it in them. And you can see with these schemes that businesses are encouraging people from deprived and BAME backgrounds into their work, and I think that's important. It's really important we recognise the progress we've made, and if we carry on at the same trajectory that we're on at the moment, we're going to be in a really good place when it comes to diversity and presenting these opportunities to those who need it. But as I said before, we do not do this whilst taking opportunities away from others. That's not the right way of doing it, because those people haven't deserved to have those opportunities taken away from them. It's not their fault that they might be from privileged backgrounds, just like it would not be a deprived person's fault that they're from deprived backgrounds. So we have to maintain a very solid balance. that's my key point here.
Rajan said earlier that he thinks like the upper class can go to the top universities. I think that nowadays that can be extended to like most of the middle class, to be honest, because of progress that we've made. I mean, of course, it'd be more beneficial if it could be extended to the working class as well. But we'll get there eventually.
Cameron, I just want to say that I'm sure the 2/3 of black kids that are in poverty today would love to hear that we've made lots of progress over the last few decades. But what progress have we made, and why are we not making more progress? Because I'm just going to repeat the statistic that I started with: 2/3 of black kids are still in poverty. There is obviously a big disparity still between the different races.
2/3 is better than 3/3, and that shows the progress we've made, because perhaps a century ago, 3/3 of black children would be slaves. So that really represents the progress that we've made, and we continue to make as we move forward into a more modern world. And I think you do have to look at the schemes that have been introduced by businesses, by media, to help people into work from deprived backgrounds, from BAME backgrounds. These schemes are here, okay, and diverse, and many businesses are now aiming towards the diversity quotas that represent the diversity of the UK. That's really positive progress, but it's not something you can change overnight. Even if you introduce something radical, what are you going to do? Suddenly say, oh yeah, all you white people, we're going to throw you in a bin, and all you black people, you get their jobs. Yay, that's great. No, you can't do that, can you? Okay, and especially now we know that there's going to be massive job losses throughout the next coming years. Perhaps that presents an opportunity for more schemes, but at the same time, jobs will be disappearing, and it's going to be really difficult to continue to help people into work. We can't just create jobs with magic wands for people from deprived to BAME backgrounds. It is something that takes time. The most important thing is that we have equality written into legislation for now, or we have equality written into legislation, and that we retain that, and hopefully businesses, the private sector, media, and government regulation can provide a stepping stone towards closer to diversity quotas for businesses that meet the diversity of the UK.
Yeah, I'll go to Rajan, but I want to respond to that afterwards.
What Cameron says about not lowering the opportunities for privileged people, and instead uplifting the opportunities for people of less privilege. I think the idea of it was obviously correct, and the way whether we can implement that or not can be debated. But I think one thing to also note is, dependent on whether you uplift or degrade, you're still going to get people with from higher income backgrounds getting opportunities automatically. Like, it's just sort of it just comes about naturally that if you come from a rich background, you are naturally going to get a lot more opportunities. But I do agree, we need something not necessarily radical, but also equally maybe something radical to uplift the opportunities we get for people in poverty. And I think when Cameron said that that's progress, that's not progress at all. That's 2/3. That's 66%. If you've got 100 kids, 66% of them in poverty. And where that could be considered progress in the last 100 years, think about the amount of progress we can make in just 6 months. Think about the amount of progress we can make in just 2 weeks. We had to vote for free schools meals, which was voted down. Like, think about how much like alleviation that would have given to our poor kids. But yeah, 66% is not a good statistic. We need something to overhaul that, and we can. It depends on if it's at a result of economic policy, and that's where big Rishi Sunak needs to come in, see where we can allocate our resources. It's going to be a challenging task because it is not easy. It is not easy, but I'm sure we are the United Kingdom. We are Great Britain. We're great for a reason. Free school meals, even though it was voted down, the amount of small businesses chipping in was incredible. An incredible show for our public. And yeah, we are Great Britain. We can find a way.
Yeah, if you want to listen to more debate on the free school meals topic, we did have a episode on it. I'll leave the link down below. But I just kind of want to respond to Cameron, and then I will go to Tommy. So I find it utterly ridiculous, the fact that you can say that 2/3 is better than 3/3. Do you hear yourself? We are talking about one race that is in poverty a lot more than other more well-off races. You've got to be kidding me. Sure, do you not hear yourself? I don't even think I need to say
It's not even equality. That's far from equality.
I don't even need to debate that, because I think that our viewers can make their own minds up, and I think they've heard enough from you and from us to make the case that we do need more racial equality, and it needs to come soon. I'm not talking about the next 6 months. I'm not even talking about the next year. I'm talking about the next few years. Over the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be a long-term project, of course. It's not easy, it's not a quick fix. It's a very complicated problem, but we have a lot of clever people inside our House of Parliament that can deal with these sorts of issues. So it's not about saying, oh, well, we don't want to be too radical. Well, we need to be radical because this is a huge issue that's facing, like, the human race, not just, like, us, not just our country. The whole of the earth is being discriminated against just because of their colour. I'll go to Tommy.
Yeah, I think very good points raised by both Rajan and Cameron there. I can agree on from both sides. From Rajan, I can agree from the perspective of how jobs are being offered more to the higher income people, probably white backgrounds, how the university players are being accepted more into the white backgrounds. I think that's very wrong from them, obviously. They should probably base it from an equality standpoint. But then again, from Cameron, I do agree progress is being made. It's not going to take instantly. We are heading in the right direction. The older people who are technically from the older days, quite a while back, they were more racist. And as they start to die off and the younger ones come in, I think we are going to definitely change our views. I think more people are being educated on it. And for those that are hard racist, I guess you could say, I think it's going to be very difficult to change their mind. So we can do our best to try and educate the next generation rather than to trying to stop the ones that have already had their mindset.
Yeah. I will come to you, Rajan, but I do want to let Cameron, if he wants to, respond to other points raised.
My key point is when you talk about radical change, what are you talking about? Because you cannot wave a magic wand and say, brilliant, we've got 1 million private sector jobs. You can all go in. And we also can't fire a bunch of white people from their jobs to put in black people. So what are you going to do? I mean, what more can we do than put in the schemes that we are putting in as businesses, the private sector, the media, putting in schemes to help the AME people into the working world. And the progress is being made. It is slow progress, but at the end of the day, I think it's as fast as can be done. And on the point about what Parliament can do, I think I would say again, what can Parliament do? Once again, they don't have a magic wand. Yes, they've got loads of money, but money does not create private sector jobs. You can subsidise the jobs, but you cannot create them. That is down to the sector itself. So we do have to look at this in detail. And I think, once again, the most important thing is that we are giving opportunities of employment to people from BAME backgrounds, because the reason that 2/3 of BAME children are in poverty is perhaps because their parents are not employed. And the biggest thing in our society, the most important thing, is jobs, employment. Without a job, you don't have any money, you can't live, really. You can't live properly. And that is why the employment schemes that the private sector are putting into place are so important, to help those parents of those 2/3 of black children in poverty to lift them out of poverty. And that's just what I think is really important, that those schemes remain in place so that we are making this progress. As I say, there's no such thing as radical change when it comes to this. You cannot wave a magic wand and give everyone jobs. That's just the reality. Instead, we just have to we have to raise these people out of poverty through presenting them the opportunities that they need.
I'll just answer the question, then I really want to move on to more general political correctness. What I'd say to that point is, if we look at the FTSE 100, just 11.3% of people who work in the FTSE 100, one of the biggest group of companies, like the stock market, are people of colour. We have to do more because that's not in line with the diversity in this country. So I do think there has to be, maybe not straight away, but there has to end up being a bigger, harsher regulations on the diversity quotas. But that obviously will take time, and maybe you have to put a 10-year kind of, I suppose, time where companies can kind of get ready for this legislation to come in. I also think education is really important. We need a fairer education system, and it can't just be a one-size-fits-all education system, because that obviously doesn't work for everybody.
Okay, just as a final thing, and some things what we can say, if Cameron wants to respond to me, he can. I like what Cameron says about we can't make radical change quickly. Cameron's providing some really good opposition as well. What you're saying is correct, and we need to hear more things from you as a more right-wing member of this podcast. Radical change is right. Radical change can't happen in a night. Rome wasn't built in a day. And I do agree, we have made so much progress. The amount of awareness nowadays on discrimination and poverty is so much more than it was back in the 1990s and before that. Something we can do to get, you asked what can Parliament do to get more diversity into our systems? And I think supply side policy of university is where it starts. Labour wanted it. A few other parties, I think it was the Green Party, wanted it. Abolish university tuition fees. I think something as simple as that has to be done. Yes, it'll cost the government a lot of money. We can spend £16 billion on the military, which we haven't even discussed that yet, which is arguably a good thing, but whereas the £16 billion just came out of nowhere pretty much. But I think we could use university to abolish the tuition fees to get university more accessible to people from deprived and less well-off backgrounds, because then we can see some of that equality coming in. We can see our smart young children get up in the ladder, and it'll make everything more accessible. And that's where we're pushing up. That's where you have the two levels that you're saying. You're pushing it up, giving the chance to succeed, and we need more of that.
Yeah, and of course, coronavirus is the most immediate problem. So we obviously need to use all our money to face that. Right now, I'm going to move on to more general political correctness now. And I think Piers would like to start.
I think, however many minutes ago that it was that Tommy mentioned the whole Doctor Who thing, I agree with that. You don't put in a minority character for the sake of there being a minority character. That's just treating them as a character trait, and that's got to be some form of discrimination. Like being gay, being black is not a character trait, and it's not something that should be used as a character trait. Netflix, I know the other companies that do that. And in terms of overall political correctness, there's two types. There's the egalitarianism, which says every human life is worth equal at the start. It depends on what you make of it. That's fine. And then there's authoritarian political culture political correctness that forces people to comply with a set standard and limits their individual liberties and freedoms. And that's a much looser definition, and it depends on how you want to define that.
Yeah, I do agree that you shouldn't be adding characters for the sake of like making them BME, gay, etc. But I also think there's an element of like using your audience and your platform to spread good messages and positive messages that maybe wouldn't get as much airtime before, such as like maybe like the Black Lives Matter movement, because we were not talking about racism as much as we needed to before this movement. So I think you've got to admit that some good must have come from kind of political correctness, because I don't think it's fair just to say it's a bad thing full stop, because it does like create change eventually. It might not be like the best way or the quickest way to do it, but there is some positives you can take from like introducing minority characters or pushing a message a bit more than normal when it's normal to. But of course the story has to come first, and I don't want to start talking about Doctor Who, but I do think there is an element of using your platform for good. Does anybody want to respond? Cameron?
Yeah, I want to stick on this point of political correctness in relation to the media, because I think it's really interesting, because a lot of this political correctness that we're seeing in the media is pure tokenism, and that's without a doubt. We are seeing now, and I'm a massive fan of Doctor Who, right? I watched it every week when it's on. And it really frustrated me last season, okay? Because I literally had to walk out on it. I walked out on it at one point. It frustrated me that much, because they are literally making stories based around solely making a tokenistic point. That is the only thing that they're writing that story about.
Somebody who's never watched Doctor Who in their life,
Orphan Planet, brilliant example. So that was I think it's episode 3 of the last series, wasn't it? And basically, this isn't so much political correctness, but it was making a political point. Where they basically, it's the worst episode in the history of Doctor Who, by the way. They planted them all on a planet that had been done over by climate change. That wasn't perhaps one that I had a massive issue with. I did have an issue with it, because I don't agree with the message it was portraying. But when it comes to political correctness, what we saw a lot of in Series 11, for example, loads of stuff about race and well, we saw a pregnant man, actually. We saw a pregnant man in one of the series, which was absolutely mental. And it's like, you don't get more tokenistic than that. So now men can be pregnant. We're changing science. But this, as I say, this is my point. Media, they're using political correctness a lot nowadays, mostly for tokenistic means, to try and show that they are diverse, to try and show that they are politically correct. When actually, do they even believe in it? Who knows, really?
I think we're going to end it there, because the Zoom meeting is about to explode. So I think that was a really interesting episode. I'm going to enjoy editing it a lot. It's going to take me a long time. But I hope you enjoyed listening to this. Please do check out one of our other podcasts, subscribe, like Instagram, Twitter, everything, website. Just go and follow us, basically. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
That's it.
What happens when the Zoom meeting ends? What does anybody know? Does everyone just leave?
No, it just explodes.